Hi everyone, my name is David Millard. I'm Professor of Computer Science at the University of Southampton in the UK, and I'm here representing the Logoculture Project, a European initiative with 11 partners across 4 countries, all exploring how to create ethical and sustainable mixed reality experiences for cultural heritage. As you can see from the screen, I'm representing a big local team. Today I want to talk about one of the 4 case studies that's being looked at within logoculture, the work that we've been doing at Southampton with the National Trust at Avery in Wiltshire, England. For those unfamiliar with the site, Avery is the largest stone circle in the world. It's the sister site to Stonehenge and part of the same World Heritage Site. The henge is around 300 metres across. It's so large that it even has the village of Avery sitting partly within it. The surrounding Neolithic landscape includes the Avenue, a 1 kilometre line of standing stones running south from the site, Silbury Hill, the largest man-made mound in Europe, and a range of barrows, including the West Kennet Long Barrow, roughly 100 metres long with an open end where you can actually go in and visit the burial chambers. Our task was to explore how visitors might experience Avery through mixed reality games, whilst doing so sustainably, ethically, and in a way that respected all stakeholders, including the National Trust and the residents of Avery Village, without disturbing other visitors. We began by conducting cultural probes to understand how people experience Avery. These included postcards with provocative questions such as, if the stones could talk, what would they say? And a sensory mapping toolkit where visitors recorded what they heard and saw and smell as they moved through the site. A thematic analysis of the probes revealed 4 aspects of Avery's genius loci, its spirit of place. The first was time, and in particular a strong sense of time passing, with Avery acting as a kind of lodestone in people's lives. Visitors described coming back with grandchildren, remembering their own childhood visits. The second was the ancient world, an awareness that this was a site that was built over thousands of years. West Kennet Long Barrow, for example, was already 1,000 years old when the henge was constructed. This also included a sort of mystical and spiritual aspect. Avery is a site of worship for several communities, and even secular visitors described the magic of the place. One postcard put it simply, a place where you can come to commune with the old gods. We also had nature-human connection, the recognition that this landscape had been shaped by humans for more than 6,000 years. And finally, there was Avery as a modern cultural heritage destination. Visitors valued Avery as a place to learn, to play, and it was a place that they genuinely loved and held in deep affection. So we took those themes into a participatory design process with the National Trust, running site visits, awareness workshops, brainstorming, design meetings, paper prototyping, and feedback workshops with village residents and Trust volunteers. Very quickly, we identified that our biggest challenge was anachrony. We were bringing modern smartphones into an ancient site where people came precisely to connect with the past. There is no technology infrastructure on site and the local team cannot maintain new hardware, so we had to adopt a kind of bring your own device approach, and finding a way to let the smartphone mediate the experience without breaking the spirit of place was going to be challenging. Our solution was to try and make the device part of the play. The inspiration came while I was driving to the site one day. The road actually runs through the stone circle, and as I entered it, my car radio just cut to static. And in that moment, I realised that technology already has a relationship with these stones in our imaginations. And by building that into the design, we could dissolve the problem of anachronism rather than try to fight it. We called our core design concept polyholomorphism, many whole forms. The phone was going to transform completely during the game, changing both its appearance and its functionality to represent different time periods. So we came up with 3 design pillars. The first was to communicate time and place, always filtered through the values of the people living at that time, helping visitors understand how past people might have thought about the world rather than just communicating historical facts and timelines. The second was building together and over time. The Avery that you see today is this joint construction created across thousands of years and hundreds of generations, and we wanted the game to reflect that continuous relationship between humans and landscape. And the third one was really building on that polyholomorphic idea, and that here the phone and the player are present in the game. So the game is not just played sort of anonymously through the device, it is played consciously in this landscape with this device by this person. And the game directly addresses all three. So our game is called The Ages of Avery, and it begins in the Visitors' Barn, a 16th century barn at the heart of the National Trust site. Simple posters that we put in the main visitor area tell players about the game and how to download it. Players are then recruited as surveyors for the National Trust and are presented with a conventional modern interface, digital maps, messages, and a fictional scanning feature to search for buried stones. About half the stones at Avery are actually buried underground. They've been interred over the past few hundred years to make way for farmland or even broken up for building materials. Players are told to search for those stones, and when they find one, they discover an augmented reality model in that place. They're also told that one of the National Trust archaeologists has gone missing and to look out for her, so they know that perhaps all is not as it seems. Having crossed the road into the second part of the henge, players are then directed by GPS to walk between the portal stones. These are two large standing stones on the northern edge and the southern edge of the site. And when they do that, the phone glitches. The modern interface cracks and disappears, and the device is transformed into a wayfinding stone. And a voice speaks to them from the past. They have returned to the Neolithic. They're now directed not by a map, but by a light that moves around the edges of the stone, and they're asked to help raise the henge. And by pointing the stone at their hand or a friend's, they can create a stone shape that adds a new standing stone in the landscape. After creating two different stones, they're then shown a third one that was created by a previous visitor. Players are then directed to turn on the spot to return to the present, but instead they find themselves in the 18th century, and the phone transforms again, this time into a ledger of sketches and encounters with characters from that period. Here they discover Dr. Lanston, the missing archaeologist, who explains that the villagers are breaking up some of the stones. Players then get the opportunity to speak to those villagers who explain their reasons, a new bakery perhaps, or a new church, and they're asked to decide whether each of their three raised stones will be sacrificed to the village's progress. Once they've made those decisions are made by signing the ledger, players return to the present. The modern interface reappears, but now with an augmented reality view. So saved stones will actually appear standing in the field, and stones that they allowed to be destroyed have become buildings that they can see. Players are then sent back to the barn where they find a large augmented reality model of the Avery site. It's roughly 5 metres across, and they can wade into it like a sort of virtual table to find everything that they've created alongside the stones and the buildings made by other visitors that day. So in this sense, that our players collaboratively reconstruct Avery in every day of play. In designing the experience, we were really careful about flow through the site, using multiple alternative routes rather than a single path, and directing players from the busier western fields into the quieter eastern fields for most of their interaction. And that created separation between players and other visitors. Our full evaluation data is in the paper, but the headline is that most players enjoyed the experience and strongly felt they had returned from a journey into Avery's past. But I wanted to share a few highlights from our critical analysis that we've done and our postmortems that we've run. The first one is that, broadly speaking, the polymorphism worked. Players clearly understood the temporal shifts through the changing medium. The actual transformation of the device, both in terms of its aesthetics and its function, kind of took on the role of level design, signalling movement through the narrative acts of our story and our gameplay. So the interface became the world through which players experienced the game, and that seemed to be very effective. Secondly, the poetics of the journey worked well. Transforming the phone into a kind of low-fidelity wayfinding stone for the Neolithic period actually reflects genuine archaeological uncertainty about that era. And the cyclical structure, beginning and ending at the barn, with the player stones persisting as a memory of their journey, kind of creates narrative completeness and kind of makes the return to modernity genuinely impactful. However, I think we were not entirely successful. So by leaning very heavily on co-design with the National Trust, we built a game that reflected a kind of authorised heritage. And that actually includes a sort of model or a conception of Avery that reflects the desires of the Trust and is subtly different from reality. And that created some frictions with actual visitor behaviour. So, for example, moving people away from the standing stones is in tension with the fact that those stones are the primary reason that visitors have come. We also played down the magical nature of the site, despite it being one of the most unique and evocative aspects of the spirit of place. And bringing visitors back to the barn, something that the National Trust were very keen to do because it's where they have their primary visitor offerings, actually broke a core principle that we've shown in our previous work, which is don't backtrack. And that created some problems with people who felt they were being forced to return, despite the fact the experience had mostly ended. So thank you very much for your attention. I'd like to thank our collaborators in the National Trust, specifically the team at Avery and at their National Centre. This has been a genuinely rewarding project to work on. The Ages of Avery remains available at the site this spring and summer, and we hope for the rest of the year. If you find yourself in the UK and you can visit Avery, please do so. It's an extraordinary place, and I hope you'll have a chance to try the mixed reality experience while you're there. Thank you for your attention.